Good evening, I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. Day 3 of testimony wrapping up in the federal racketeering and sex trafficking case against Sean Diddy Combs. Cassie Ventura, Sean Combs' former girlfriend and the prosecution's key witness, was back on the stand for a second day with more explicit testimony. She testified more about that now infamous 2016 incident at the hotel, describing the circumstances before, during, and after. Cassie saying Combs beat her as she tried to escape a freak-off that turned violent. Prosecutors also introducing images they allege showed damage from a vase Combs threw at Cassie during that attack. She also testified the drug-fueled sex parties eventually turned into pornography shoots, with Combs setting up video equipment for blackmail recordings. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges. He faces life in prison if convicted. We have our team of reporters and analysts closely following the case from inside the courtroom. Plus, we're also doing a deep dive into some of the most searched topics related to this high-profile trial, and a warning that some of Cassie Ventura's testimony may be difficult for viewers to hear. We begin, though, with the latest from inside that courtroom. Our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Koturski, is outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Aaron, Cassie Ventura recounted explicit details of these alleged freak-offs and the psychological impact. What more did we learn today?
Cassie Ventura, Eva, broke down on the witness stand as she described how her abusive, nearly 11-year relationship with Sean Combs left her drug addicted and psychologically damaged. She was made to participate, she said, in hundreds of freak-offs, these sexual performances with male prostitutes.
Hundreds?
While Sean Combs recorded them, using the video, she said, as leverage. And by the end of their relationship, she said she was suicidal. She was in trauma therapy, she was having episodes of PTSD, and she remembered for the jury just wanting Sean Combs to understand. She wrote down what she thought would be chapters of a book. She wanted him to read them, to understand the pain he had caused. Eventually, she sued him and revealed today for the first time that they settled the lawsuit for $20 million.
And what was the jury's reaction to what she was saying today?
The jurors were quite moved. She recalled an instance toward the end of their relationship in 2018 when she alleged that Sean Combs raped her in her own apartment on the floor. She said it was quick and he lost the color in his eyes. His eyes went black, and she told him no. She told him she didn't want to. She said she didn't even know if he heard her. He just kept going until he finished and then simply left. It was the second to last time that she had seen him in the course of their nearly 11-year relationship. But the jury's most vivid reaction, Eva, came when they were shown explicit images from some of the videos that Cassie said she was made to record of the freak-offs. There were 7 images. One juror appeared to move his neck as if taken aback. Another juror raised an eyebrow. Another appeared to shake a head. Sean Combs wanted to see those images. He grabbed a binder that they were contained in, leaned over towards his attorney to flip through them.
Goodness, the details of all of this trial are very graphic. Combs' family is in this courtroom listening to it all. Cassie's husband is there in court as well. How are the family members reacting to hearing this?
Before we get into the family members' conversation, I gotta ask some questions. Now, I usually see no need to preference something, but I understand the trickiness of cases like this. But that's the first time that I'm hearing that it was hundreds of freak-offs. Now, my stance on this is that after seeing the beating video in that hotel room post-freak-off, Diddy is absolutely an evil, and a freaky man. But we must put into the court of public opinion, hundreds? If you said ones, tens of, maybe even 50, but hundreds? Well, I do believe that Diddy is a monster. Are we saying that she's completely innocent in partaking in hundreds of these things? Or she was complicit, at least for some of the time? This was a 10, 11-year relationship. At what point can you not just leave? Just walk away. Get out of the situation. But you did hundreds 400, 500, 600 of these things? Or did you stay continuing to do this for some sort of purpose? Now, again, Diddy's evil, but using your logical brain. Matter of fact, let's do it like this. All of my G's out there right now, go ask the lady in your life right now. Say, hey, babe, if I was doing to you what Diddy was doing to Cassie, would you stay with me?
Oh, God. That's nasty.
I have a strong feeling that 99% of these women would say, hell no, absolutely not. Your lady would not be complicit unless there wasn't something else that she could significantly and if not materially gain from your ass. Now again, Diddy ain't shit, okay? Don't get my words misconstrued, but we're gonna sit here and act like she's 100% innocent within this. I think we can do better than that.
Alex Fine, Cassie Ventura's husband, at one point just looked over at Sean Combs, seemed to glare at him when some of these explicit details come out. Other times, he doesn't even seem to acknowledge him in the courtroom, just looks straight at his wife as if to make sure she is okay. And notably today, Eva, after such graphic testimony from Cassie Ventura about decades worth of sexual activity, Sean Combs' daughters were not here. There were fewer members of the Combs family here to support him. He interacted with them, mouths "I love you," makes the same gestures he's made for the last couple of days, but some of this testimony clearly has been too much, especially for Combs' daughters.
One of the other ththings we heard Cassie tell the jury was about her brief relationship with hip-hop star Kid Cudi. What did she say about that?
Ooh. Yeah, what did she say?
This is an establishment of one of the acts of the racketeering conspiracy that prosecutors have alleged. It was 2011, and Cassie Ventura said she and Sean Combs were not in a good place, so she briefly began dating Kid Cudi, and said that at one point Sean Combs found out after they had a freak-off because he saw her phone, saw some emails that she had written about Kid Cudi, and he became enraged about it. And threatened at one point to blow up his car. And Cassie Ventura recalled Combs telling her that he wanted Kid Cudi's friends to be there to watch the car blow up. And one of the racketeering conspiracy acts that Sean Combs is accused of is arson.
And we have to note here that Sean Combs' lawyers say that he had nothing to do with that car bombing. Aaron Kotursky there at the courthouse for us. Thank you so much for breaking this all down. And to continue with this, we bring in our ABC News legal contributor and trial attorney, Brian Buckmeyer. You were also there in the courtroom again today. So tell me, what do you think of the prosecution? Are they making the link between what Cassie is saying there on the stand and the charges that Diddy is facing?
Now, in regards to my earlier comments about her being complicit, if you want to enter in the idea that she stayed for 11 plus years because he's such a violent man and has ties to all of these dangerous people that is willing to do dirty work for him, I am more willing to believe that. There's so many nuances within this case that still have to be talked about before we can draw an official conclusion. Let's go.
Absolutely, and they're beginning to do so. We're going to start off with that top charge of racketeering and just give you a legal definition. I'll break it down in simpler terms. Racketeering is basically when two or more people conspire to commit criminal acts that in furtherance of that criminal enterprise. And so when I'm talking about the links, we hear about the criminal act that's funneled by the freak-offs, the sexual assault, the videotaping, the threats of violence, is also threats of humiliations, of putting out those videos if Cassie was to say anything. And then we kind of think about the criminal enterprise, right? Today we heard about 13 different escorts and dancers that were hired from different states all across the country. Those are the people who are participating in the freak-offs. And then we heard about some of the damage that comes from them and the harm that follows, as well as Cassie, when she took the stand, she pointed to a photo, not this one exactly, but one of that night where they're wearing the same dress, and said after one of these brutal nights, she had a bruising on her right leg. And she was able to point out in court where she believed that those bruises were. So the defenses definitely have their work cut out for them because the prosecution is making some strong arguments.
Yeah, and the prosecutors also introduced, we heard Aaron just mention it, those explicit images of these freak-offs. Cassie's testifying they happen in multiple states and residences. What's their strategy here with all this?
So again, going back to those escorts and dancers, they were from Las Vegas, LA, Miami, New York. One of the major reasons why this is a federal case is because they're talking about crossing over state lines, that they themselves went to these different locations, or hire these individuals to come to various locations, both domestically and internationally, to participate in these alleged freak-offs. And that's where we get a lot of the racketeering and the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. And of course, that last charge, the transportation to engage in prostitution.
In regard to the racketeering, they're going to have to prove criminal organization, because then what's the difference between this and Sean Combs and maybe one or two of his assistants hiring a bunch of different freaky people to be escorts within a city? They're going to have to prove criminal organization. They're going to have to prove coercion, force. They're going to need multiple people to say that this was against their will, perhaps break down how everybody was paid, the accounting structure. There's a lot more information that is yet to come out.
All right, so how do you think the defense is going to counter the testimony that we've heard so far?
So an interesting thing that the defense is doing is they're trying to make a distinction between sex trafficking and domestic violence. They're saying that it is domestic violence. Sean Combs has done what Tenny Garrigo said in our opening statements.
For sure he has.
Indefensible things. But it's not this.
He's a piece of shit.
It's not sex trafficking. And one of the things that they point at is that infamous video that we all saw, but they're looking at some of the raw footage. And they're saying that when Sean Combs did this violent assault of Cassie, and they're not denying it, not denying the injuries, that instead he was doing it to get his cell phone. Now, Cassie testified on the stand that she believes that this was her cell phone, but the way the defense is articulating this is there was violence, there was domestic abuse, there might even been, but it was about jealousy, infidelity, and money. It wasn't about a criminal enterprise. It wasn't about trafficking. That's the argument that they're going to make when cross-examination starts tomorrow of Cassie and going forward in this case.
Brian Buckmeyer, thank you. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Cassie Ventura today, again, as we said, detailing that alleged abuse, testifying Sean Combs turned the freak-off videos into blackmail. Combs denies the federal charges. His defense claiming his violent acts are domestic violence, as Brian just said, but not evidence of sex trafficking and racketeering. But prosecutors have said the jury will hear a similar story from another alleged victim they're calling Jane. Let's bring in Maria Cruz Melendez, a former federal prosecutor who also served as one of the lead prosecutors in the case against R. Kelly. Maria, thank you so much for being here. Let's get right to this. What's the government trying to establish here with Cassie's testimony?
Essentially, the government is trying to establish a pattern of abuse. And the reason this is important is because at the end of the day, each one of these charges will hinge on whether or not they can show that Sean Combs essentially overcame Cassandra Ventura's will. So whether or not there was coercive control that resulted in her staying in, and at the end of the day, with regard to racketeering, with regard to forced labor, sex trafficking, and even the transportation of prostitution, getting from her mouth exactly what happened to her is key. And I think at the end of the day, as previously mentioned, having other individuals who can testify to what they saw as well, and also that this type of conduct happened to other individuals is going to be really important in establishing the pattern of racketeering that the government has alleged here.
And to that point that you just raised, Cassie testified today that she saw Diddy inflict violence on others. Why does that matter here?
The reason that's important is because of this distinction that defense counsel is trying to make at this point, that this is simply about domestic violence, that it's about what happened between Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura. But once you've brought in other victims, once you brought in the fact that violence may have been perpetrated against staff, against assistants, against other individuals who felt that they also had to assist Combs in the crimes that have been alleged by the government, then you're getting closer to establishing not only an enterprise, but that there's in fact been a pattern of racketeering.
You brought your case against R. Kelly also for racketeering and sex trafficking. So you know what it takes to go up against a powerful, wealthy defendant. What are the similarities and the differences that you see here?
Yeah, I think there are a number of similarities. At the end of the day, we have a high-profile defendant. We had that in both cases. We have a situation in which allegations included coercive control, taking individuals under their wing, using that as a form of control, using physical abuse, psychological abuse, and other forms. During my opening statement in the R. Kelly case, I talked about the Predator's Handbook and using all those types of methods in order to control individuals. I think some of the differences, of course, that you see is that in the R. Kelly case, a number of our victims, the majority of our victims, were minors. Here you have a situation in which that's not the case. And I think that distinction can sometimes make a difference if you need to convince a jury that a successful adult woman was controlled by someone like Sean Combs.
Right.
And that takes us back to this pattern, understanding all of the abuse that has been alleged and that Cassie Ventura has been testifying to, and how that overcame her will such that she was unable to leave, to say no, and in fact had to do everything that Combs told her to do.
Long story short, it's far difficult within this case because Cassie wasn't a minor, which would denote that she would not have control of her actions. The super interesting components within this case, and I think that the defense is doing a relatively good job in structuring what is domestic violence versus what is RICO. Is the defendant a liar, a cheater, a controller, predacious on beautiful women that he wants to join his S parties or his freak-offs? Does he hit women? Is he just flatly a piece of shit? Yes, they're saying all of that, yes. Nobody is denying any of that. But really the question is, how complicit were the people around him within this situation? And did he operate under an enterprise or a structure of members and hierarchy and with power, control? I think it's going to get really interesting coming in the next several days. I want them to interview, right? Like if they found someone like within the police system that was helping them pull strings, right? If they find out that some person that he employed worked at the hotel and they got that video scrub, or at least thought that he got that video scrub, right? There would have to be closer ties linking him to a criminal organization. Last but not least, guys, leave me your comments down below. Do you agree with the things that I've said within this video? Do you disagree with the things that I say within this video? I want to go live about this soon because I want to get your guys' thoughts. I want to go over materials and cross-reference different news articles and then bring you guys up so we can have a conversation about it. Last but not least, let me just continue on saying this. People should not be laying their hands on anybody. DV is not tolerated on this platform as it comes to men against women, nor women against men. Keep your damn hands to yourself. But this is a critical thinking platform, so we have to be able to understand both sides of the coin. And while we can speak ill of the men that are committing this, we have to be able to have a conversation about why are the women signing up for this or staying in these situations. We talk wholly about accountability so often within this platform, and within that accountability, you have the choice to walk away. All right, guys, drop me your comments down below. Let me hear what you guys think about this. I think this will be a very interesting conversation, and I will see you guys soon. Until next time, YouTube. Peace.
She belongs to the street.
Girl, don't hold my hand. You a mattress actress on the OnlyFans. Get your money, girl, but damn, how is that your only plan? What you gonna do when you get too old to strip and dance? Get up out your echo chamber screaming period and yes. You a low down dirty woman if you try to get knocked up.